We're not live yet.
Okay. Hello and welcome to the Severe MMA preview show for UFC 267. And I'm joined today by Sean Sheehan and Sean Denny, who's live in Warsaw right now, 15 minutes away from Big Jan's gym. So we said we come on, we chat about that fight, we chat about the co-main event and a couple of other fights on the card, just to break it down for a bit. How are the lads doing today, Sean and Sean?
Good. Good. How are you all over in Warsaw, Shadi?
Not too bad at all. Weather's still pretty warm and cheap beer, so can't complain.
It's the best. The best. So what more would you want?
Before I go on, I just want to say that this is brought to you by eatallreal.com. All Real Nutrition protein bars are sponsoring this pre-show. So go onto that website, check them out, enter the code SEVEREMMA for 15% off. Go and check out those protein bars. They're absolutely delicious. You can get a multi-pack with loads of different flavors and stuff like that. So head on over there, check it out, enter Severe MMA, get 15% off and eat healthy. How are you, Graham? How's it going?
Good. I might have to run at any moment, but until then, I'll jump in.
So, Sean, what's it like over there in Warsaw right now? What's the buzz like around the place? What's the thoughts on all the fight that's going on? Hearing any predictions or anything like that?
So all the predictions are basically he's going to knock him out within the first 3 rounds. I think most people here are saying about second round. But there's a big buzz in the city. There's billboards up in a few different places advertising the show on the local Polsat. And it's coming straight off the backs of the last KSW, so there's a real fight mood in Warsaw at the moment.
Nice. And in your opinion, what do you think that Big Jan has to look out for now in this main event coming in against Glover?
I think he needs to avoid being put on his back. Because Glover's very sneaky with his submissions. And he can catch it up very, very quickly. So if Jan is a black belt himself, but if he gets too comfortable there, Glover is very sneaky. He's been there, done that, bought the t-shirt. Like he's not going to make any mistakes on the ground. So I think Jan has to try and stay off his back.
And would you reckon that? How do you see it playing out on feet? Like I reckon Glover, he has some good boxing, but doesn't really utilize his leg kicks or utilize too many kicks overall anyway. So I'm thinking that, Big Jan, if he can keep it up, I think he'll have it all his own way. And do you see him fighting him maybe at range to kind of avoid that takedown, using leg kicks, using body kicks and stuff like that to keep Glover away?
Definitely. Jan's a very good kickboxer, so he likes to keep people at distance. He's very good at choosing when to go into closer range and go for the power shots. But equally, like if the opportunity isn't there, he's not going to take it. He won't rush into anything. Like his experience is pretty good at this point. He will be risk averse, but if he sees an opening, he'll come thundering in and start knocking blocks off.
Yeah, I didn't expect him to see some fireworks on the feet. And yeah, it'll be interesting. I think if Big Jan can keep Glover off of him, I think that he will do some damage. And, Glover has had some devastating knockouts so far in his career, Rumble Johnson and Gustafsson as well. And I'm curious to see if his chin will uphold here in this fight. We'll just go over and maybe ask Graham what he thinks about this fight close now. You've seen all the weigh-ins and everything like that, Graham. What are you thinking now? We're about 24 hours away from the fight now.
Yeah, I'm not too up on the KSW or the other stuff recently. I've kind of taken a step back from watching every single like MMA event. I just kind of catch up on the highlights a lot of the time because I just after years of watching it, I think sometimes you can get yourself into like a rut by watching too much MMA. So I wouldn't really be able to say as well as you guys would be able to say about the matchup. I haven't even seen any of the weigh-ins or anything like that yet.
This is UFC
Yeah,
program.
we were just talking.
Oh, sorry, I thought you were talking about KSW there.
we're actually talking about Jan Blachowicz and Glover Teixeira. So
That's brilliant. That's like.
We'll fast forward a week there.
I'm mad distracted. Sorry. I thought you were talking about KSW there, and I tuned out on my phone. Yeah, like Jan, I think I've picked against him so many times over the years, and I kind of said I wouldn't pick against him again. And Glover is like, I have a bit of a soft spot for him. I think me and Sean have talked about him over the years, and how kind of underrated he is in a lot of ways. And you know, I kind of have a feeling that Glover might get it done, but I think that the safe pick and the correct pick is to go with Jan. And I think it's the last chance for Glover, and I'd love to see him do it, but I think Jan is just younger and quicker, and I think it's a tough matchup for Glover the more I think about it.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough one. I mean, I think when it comes to Glover, the guys he has been facing recently, and like Anthony Smith, and there has been a lot of middleweights that have come up in weight class as well. And he got a good submission over Thiago Santos in his last fight, who former middleweight too. But I think that big Jan is going to be bigger and stronger coming into this fight. So I'm interested to see what the grappling exchanges are going to be like. Who would you think is going to get the better of the grappling exchanges, Sean Sheehan?
I think I'd just about go with Jan Blachowicz. I think he's, like I was saying on the podcast this week, I think he's a little bit stronger in all areas. You know, Sean Denny's written some good stuff about him in the past before, and we've talked about it on the podcast. I think his striking is a little bit underrated, and his wrestling is a little bit underrated. But I think after what he did to Israel Adesanya, I think a lot of people know about his wrestling now, and they should know about his striking. But for fucking Daniel Cormier talking shite about it basically for 25 minutes, you know, more people would. If you had a good commentator on there, we probably would know more about how fantastic of a striker he is. But like, you can't go out there and just take a guy down who has shown fantastic takedown defense over and over without people knowing you're a good striker. Whereas on the other side of it, a good wrestler. Glover, I think, is one of the most underrated wrestlers in the UFC. I think he's fantastic takedowns, but I don't think he's as good as Jan. I just don't. And especially with the way Glover takes people down, he kind of times people, gets a double leg in the middle of the cage. The way Jan strikes makes that even tougher, I think. And Jan he just hides his takedown so well. It's one of those fights where it's two guys who are good everywhere and good in similar ways and good in similar ranges and at everything. So, like, you could say, who is the advantage in the wrestling? I could probably say Blachowicz. Maybe someone else would say Glover. Neither of us could say by much. You could say the same about the striking. I think Glover has a little bit of a boxing advantage, if you want to put it like that, whereas Jan probably has a kickboxing advantage. So yeah, I think it's, and just before I throw it back to you, people can put comments as well. And if you're on YouTube, you can put like a super chat if you want to like give us a $5 or anything like that. You can do that as well. So any comments, I'll show them up on the screen here as well. Go on, Ian.
Definitely do that. Throw us a load of money. No, I agree. And I think, you know, one thing that really surprised me with Jan Blachowicz, and we've seen it at the end of his fight with Izzy. I think that we were all expecting him to take Izzy down and put him on his back, but I don't think anybody was really expecting him to go out and outstrike Izzy in the early stages of that fight too. And I think that that's what happened, and it's definitely surprised me. I was just wondering from Sean Denny, were you surprised at that, and to see just the level of striking that Jan Blachowicz brought in against Israel Adesanya, Sean Denny?
Not really, to be honest. Jan was a Polish champion kickboxer, so he's been kickboxing is what got him into MMA in the first place. He also had Izu Ugonna, who was a pro heavyweight boxer, who also did kickboxing, who sort of was very good at mimicking Izzy's style. So like he's also sort of from Nigeria. There's very similar background to what Adesanya had. So he was very good at sort of mimicking what Izzy was going to do. So I think I wasn't surprised, to be honest. Like he's way more experienced in kickboxing than I think people realize.
Yeah, I remember that you were telling me that the last time, that he was getting a lot of good work with some good kickboxers, and it definitely showed. And speaking of good stand-up, let's probably move over to the co-main event where we got two pretty dynamic strikers as well going at it in Petr Yan versus Corey Sandhagen. And this is a fight that I'm really looking forward to. It's one of the standout fights for me on the card. One thing that would worry me coming into this fight, if I'm Corey Sandhagen and if I'm Corey Sandhagen's team, that would be that he's taken this fight just 3 months after that TJ Dillashaw fight, which was a pretty brutal fight, and he took a lot of damage in that fight as well. So, I mean, it's a quick turnaround for Corey Sandhagen, and I'm wondering how quickly he can recover after that fight, and will he be able to withstand the pressure and some of the damage that Petr Yan is going to be throwing at him. And another small thing that I noticed in that TJ Dillashaw fight was Corey Sandhagen's willingness to kind of accept positions where he found himself with his back taken on multiple occasions, and where TJ was kind of just sitting on his back, and Sandhagen, maybe he wasn't able to get him off, but I felt that he could have been doing a little bit more, and I don't think that that's going to work out too good for him if he does this thing against Petr Yan here, who's also very, very lethal in the clinch. He separates with some lethal elbows and some lethal strikes, and he also has some very good sweeps and trips inside the clinch as well. So I'll throw it over to Graham and just get his thoughts on that fight.
Sorry, my sister's trying to talk to me. I'm just telling her I'm doing a podcast.
Yep. We go to Sean first. Sean.
Professional as always, Graham. We're talking about ONE FC here now.
Yeah. Cage Warriors. Yeah, I think Petr Yan. It's kind of. I think it's his fight to lose here. I think Sandhagen's definitely proven himself as a upper echelon guy, but when it comes to a championship fight, I think Petr Yan's been there, done that. I think he's won those fights, and I think Sandhagen's been in the top or been in the kind of main spot a couple of times, and it hasn't really worked out for him. I think that's definitely a factor here. He definitely has methods of victory to win this fight, but I definitely wouldn't be too confident in his chances. I'd be pretty confident Yan will get it done late, maybe wear him down or win a dominant decision, getting more dominant as the rounds go on.
Yeah, that's something that Petr Yan does so well. He did it against Aljamain Sterling as well. He does turn up the pressure as the fight goes on. So I'm interested to see whether Corey Sandhagen, would you kind of agree with me in what I was saying? Maybe in Corey Sandhagen might have taken this fight a little bit too soon, but you can't blame him for not turning down a title shot. I mean, you got to take that chance.
Yeah, exactly. You might not get the chance again. We've seen in the past fighters get concussion when they're in training and jiu-jitsu, when they're lined up for a title fight, and they never get back there. So anything can happen. It's a crazy game. I think you got to take the chance when it's offered. Put up your best fight, and if it's a close fight, you might get a rematch. But I don't think Dana White doesn't take too kindly to people turning down spots and cards he wants to fill, and he holds grudges. He's shown that, and he's open about that. He'll talk to the media about his grudges if you just ask him. So I think all the way around, it's not too short notice. So I think it's the right decision.
Yeah, for sure. And just wondering, Sheen, what you think if you're looking back on that Corey Sandhagen fight against TJ Dillashaw, and you were to suggest what he should maybe change up coming in here to take on Petr Yan, what would it be?
Do you know what? I think it's a very different sort of matchup, Yan versus Dillashaw. I don't know where we were talking about it somewhere on one of the hundreds of podcasts I was doing. I feel like also as well, before I get into that, you can only put comments apparently now on YouTube. So if you're trying to comment on Twitter, we can't show them for some reason. You can still watch on Twitter and all of that, but if you want to put in a comment, if you want to see it on screen like this, then head on over to Severe MMA YouTube. The at Severe MMA has tweeted out. But to answer your question, I think Yan's TJ Dillashaw's style is made more to fight any style, really, or made more to fight like a wilder style. TJ Dillashaw's style really was built to beat and fight Dominic Cruz, to someone who is very unpredictable, who does lots of different things. Now, maybe he doesn't have, Dominic Cruz doesn't have the big wheel kicks like Corey Sandhagen has, but you get the point. It's made for that, the unpredictable. Petr Yan style isn't. We've seen fighters down through the years, Joanna Jędrzejczyk versus Rose Namajunas, I think, is the perfect example. Ioane and Jacek's style is very much a straight up forward style, Muay Thai or Muay Thai as Randy Couture would call it, style. And to fight that sort of style is a little bit easier. It's like Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. He knows what style Klopp is going to play. He knows what style Pep is going to play.
I don't know if he does.
I definitely don't think he knows what style.
Give me a second. Give me a second. In past years, he was able to destroy both of those because that a little bit different now. But I think Jan's style is very predictable. But some people are John Jones is very predictable as well. But he's very fucking hard to beat, So that doesn't make it easy. But I do think it's a very different fight. I think if Sandhagen is unpredictable in this fight, it might pay off for him. Like, I think Jan will win, and I think Sandhagen is too wild and takes too many shots. And when I say too wild, I mean too wild for a guy like Jan who hits very hard. I think his wildness is good. But his wildness also might get him a flying knee KO, And I think that is a real possibility in this fight. I would not rule Sandhagen out at all. I know a lot of people are. And, Parrier has, as Harry comes in here in a second, Parrier has had so many tough fights. The Aljamain Sterling fight was a tough fight for him, but he did pretty well with that one as well. But yeah, that's my take on that one. I think very different fight from Dillashaw. And I think what he needs to do is actually not change up too much. Be wild.
Yeah, that's a couple of good points there. Just what were you thinking of that fight, Sean? How do you see it going down, Sean Denny?
I sort of agree with Mr. Sheehan. Like if Sandhagen's to do it, I think he's looking for a flash KO or a submission or something like that. But you'd be looking at sort of something wild, whereas Jan is a Terminator. He'll just keep coming forwards. He's got the big fight experience. Like he's fought 5 rounds in ACB long before he ever got to the UFC, and he was fighting pure killers over there. So I think the experience and the pressure he's going to put on is going to be huge. I think there's no way, I don't think Sandhagen's going to be able to hang with him for 5 rounds.
So hold on, sorry to interrupt you. Someone just paid us 50 DKK. I have no idea how much that is, but it feels like a lot of money. So we better answer this question. Ian, do you want to ask that question?
So how many on this card will fight for a title by mid-2022? Well, I'd say any of the winners of the title fights are going to be fighting in mid-2022 again, defending their titles. Let's take a look at the rest of the card. I think that with a win, and especially with a finish, I think Islam Makhachev, I think if he goes out there and gets a finish, I think his next fight will be against the top 3, or if not a title fight. If he goes out there and completely destroys Dan Hooker, I mean, you can't really deny him either a title eliminator or a title shot. So it'll be interesting to see how that fight goes down. And I mean, apart from that, I don't know if there's too many people who are really on the cusp of a title shot. What do you guys think? Whoever wants to take it.
I think Chimaev, we were talking about it, I think myself and you, Ian, yesterday on a podcast that's coming out this week about how, like, that welterweight division as it is right now, Usman has beaten a lot of those lads over the last while. And, Leon Edwards, he's probably the next guy, and probably should be the next guy when he is taking on Masvidal coming up. But if he's not, they have shown in the past that Khamzat is a guy they want to push. So I could, I could see him get a title shot in the next year. I think Makhachev, he deserves one. He probably will, especially if he beats Hooker, and if he beats one other person, he'll deserve one the next year. And obviously, as Sandhagen, he's getting one tomorrow. So, that would be my take on that one. And thank you very much to Carol Jan for that super chat and that super question. Fantastic.
Thank you very much, Carol. Appreciate it. Harry Powell is in the chat. We just shared our quick thoughts on Jan Blachowicz and Glover Teixeira. We're talking about Sandhagen and Jan. Me and you had the chance to talk about this fight last week. Any different thoughts, Harry? Are you still on the same kind of thought process that you were last week?
Yeah, pretty much the same. Hello, by the way. How is everyone? But yeah, pretty much the same, to be honest. I think Sandhagen doesn't fight well. Doesn't fight as well going backwards as he does going forwards. And the kicks will probably get caught and will play into the game, the trip game, the sort of standing judo game and clinch game of Jan, and that's going to be a big problem. That's not to say that Corey can't play off his back. He obviously can, but yeah, I think it's going to be a tough night, as Sean Denny alluded to hang for 5 rounds, going toe to toe. Can he knock him out? Yeah, of course he can. Can he jump on his back and submit him? Yeah, of course he can. But I think there's more to change for Sandhagen if he's going to try and beat him technically, and there's just not enough time for that, you know. And for Teixeira and Jan, this fight fills me with a bit of sadness, to be honest, boys. I like both of them, and we're probably going to see one of them get knocked out, right? And on what we said on the podcast with myself and Ian is Jan has a very, very underrated striking game and has a very underrated kicking game, especially. Teixeira doesn't really throw a ton of kicks, although, you know, his wrestling is underrated. I feel as though getting into striking range against Jan is going to be a big problem, a big problem. And if you can't get into striking range, Jan will set the pace. And if Jan sets the pace, you're fucked.
Yeah, I can see that. That it's going to be a super interesting fight, and I'm looking forward to both of those. And we'll move on a little bit further down the card. We'll talk a little bit about Makhachev versus Hooker here. I think the analysis fight is pretty easy. I mean, we all know what Makhachev is going to come in and try to do against someone like Dan Hooker, who's a really good striker. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of takedown defense Dan Hooker has and how long he'll be able to keep Makhachev off him, because I can just see Makhachev wanting to come in here, taking the fight down and kind of wearing on Hooker, who took this fight at short notice, who was off another fight from Hasprat as well, only a month ago. So, you know, Hooker has his back against the wall here, but kudos to him for taking the fight. I mean, he's a set of balls on him, and that's for sure. So I'm just wondering, do you feel the same, Graham? I mean, are you good to talk, Graham? Yeah.
I think you know, Dan Hooker is obviously going to take the fight and be confident, but I think it's a really bad style matchup for him. I like if he can manage to stuff some takedowns, maybe it'll change, but I just see him getting taken down early and often and just getting dominated. And, you know, I know his grappling just isn't going to be on the level of, I just think there's no chance he's going to be able to, not no chance, but there's very little chance he's going to be able to defend the takedowns consistently. And I think once he's on his back, once he gets back up again, he won't have the same spring in a step, and he'll be wary of the takedown attempts. And I think it's probably going to be pretty one-sided once the first takedown happens, which I expect to happen early enough in the first round. So, I think it's going to be a long night for Hooker here.
Yeah, and I mean, look, Sean just had the graphic up at Tapology there, and all of his losses have been against really good guys as well. So, I mean, it's not as if he's losing to bad competition, but I do agree with you. I think that it's just a bad stylistic matchup. I think, you know, it's going to be one of those fights where he probably has maybe a minute at the start of each round, and that's what he'll have to get his shots off. And if he doesn't do it, I think that Makhachev is either shoot for the takedown and counter those shots, or I think that he'll just grab the clinch and try and get him up against the fence to take him down. And just wondering that's a great comment. Just wondering what you think about this fight, Sean Sheehan.
Like it is one of those ones where it's not the most complicated fight in the world, I suppose, to break down when you look at it. It's very much a striker versus a wrestler. I spoke a little bit earlier about Sandhagen and, you know, the kind of the knees through the middle and those big shots. I think Hooker has that live chance as well. And I'm repeating myself from another podcast now, but I think, you know, for most lads like McGregor against Habib, I was kind of giving out after that fight about him throwing that knee through the middle, because it's just going to get you fucking taken down. But I think for someone like Hooker, who maybe doesn't have as many tools as someone like McGregor or as good as him, you know, I think the knee through the middle might be the way he wins this fight. You know, one thing you definitely know for sure, that Islam Makhachev is going to be coming and looking for takedowns, and that knee through the middle might be the way that you make him pay for that takedown. So we talked about predictability earlier on. That might be a little bit of something that is predictable.
Yeah, that's for sure. What are your thoughts on this, Sean Denny?
Pretty much similar. Like, I think Makhachev's going to get the takedown early, and he's probably just going to lay on him for 3 rounds, or if a submission comes up, he might take it. But I think Hooker's only chance is to catch him with a big shot. Similar to the way Makhachev lost his only fight. I think a big shot will be needed to do
Oh,
We lose Sean in there. You're back, I think, Sean.
You there, Sean?
Oh, you're
We
muted.
lost Sean Denny. We'll get back to you. I'll move it over to Harry. Harry, how do you feel about this fight, Makhachev versus Hooker?
So I mean, I'm not even sure that big knee up the middle is going to be there, because I don't think Makhachev is going to shoot like that. You know, most of Makhachev's takedowns come from pushing your man against the fence, wearing him down in the clinch, and then moving from there, right? Like, especially against guys that are better than your average grappler, right? And Dan Hooker, as we've already alluded to over and over again, is not the greatest grappler. He doesn't have anywhere near the grappling pedigree of Makhachev. However, he is an elite level fighter and will have an understanding of how to keep himself safe enough against most grapplers, right? So I agree with basically everything that everyone said, that if Hooker can land early, I mean, it's going to be kryptonite either way, right? If Hooker lands early, Makhachev is going to wrestle even harder. If Makhachev is going to be able to get him down, it's probably done anyway, you know? I think the only, the only outside chance, and this is an outside chance, right, is whether Makhachev, if Hooker makes it to the third round and Makhachev decides to do a bit of a Habib where he decides he wants to be Mike Tyson for a round, as we saw in the last round of Iaquinta or the last round of Edson Barbosa, then Hooker might have a chance, but it's a slim one, right? It's a slim one.
It will be a tough one. Are you back? Sean Denny?
I think so. Don't know what happened there.
We can hear you loud and clear. Give us your thoughts on this fight, Sean, and maybe an additional question. If Islam was to get the win, how close do you think he is to a title shot if he was to get a win or maybe a finish in this fight?
I'd say he'll be one more big fight away from a title. I think. I don't know how easy he'll find the opponents to actually take him on to actually get the fight, but he can't be too far away. I'd say like he'll probably have to fight someone like Michael Chandler or someone to get it, but he has to be very close, I think, with a win. But I think he's going to style on Hooker. I think it'll be 3 rounds of dominance. Unfortunately,
do you think his kind of style not being, Dana White's favorite style, and maybe his personality not really having caught on with the public, and the fact that the lightweight division is so stacked and has so many names, that will hinder him in getting a title shot in the near future?
It might, yeah. I think it might as well.
The Abu Dhabi deal, though, might help there.
Yeah, and also I think that we've seen with guys before, and this is why I'm saying that if he went and got a decision win against Hooker, it might not necessarily give him the next jump that he might want. But if he was to go out there and put away someone like Dan Hooker, I mean, finishes do get you title shots as well, even if you're not the most kind of impressionable kind of guy or a guy who talks a lot of shit or stuff like that. I mean, look at somebody like Kamaru Usman, who will be fighting next week. I mean, he isn't probably the most sellable fighter. He doesn't talk an awful amount of shit. But what he has done recently is he's gone out there and started putting guys away. And now they're talking about him as pound for pound. So I think in certain ways what you're saying is right, but there is other ways that you can get there. But he has to go out and get those finishes. It's easier said than done. Does anybody else have anything to add about this fight?
I just think on the Makhachev, I'll trust you, Harry. On the Makhachev title shot thing, it's like someone put it up in the in the chat there. Ian, you might want to click on mute. Everyone will just click mute there when we're not talking, and we'll unmute ourselves. But I think the problem with the title shots these days, right? Okay, we know the next lightweight title fight, it's going to be Charles Oliveira versus Dustin Parrier. If Dustin Parrier wins that, there's a big problem for the UFC, because look, if Charles Oliveira wins it, he'll fight the next guy, whoever that is. If it's Makhachev, he'll fight him. If it's Beneil Dariush, I think Daniel suggested there Toby suggested in the comment section there, I think he'd be happy enough to fight him. Parrier won't. If Parrier has that belt, he will wait, and and that's not me criticizing him. He has earned that right. If he wants to wait out,
is that a big problem for the UFC though? Do you think that's what they want?
In terms of like, no, I agree. But in terms of like moving the division on and getting the next challenger together, and for Makhachev, yeah, I think it is, because Parrier, like I don't know, maybe we can put this around to everyone, but if Parrier wins it, I think he's waiting for McGregor. What do you think? Graham?
I would be very surprised if he didn't wait for McGregor too. It's the money fight, isn't it, Graham?
Yeah, well, I think he definitely plans on fighting Conor again. It is the most lucrative fight in the division. It brings the most attention. It's a huge part of Dustin's legacy already, and to like kind of do it. I know it's a clean, like he's knocked out Conor, and Conor's knocked him out, and then he has another TKO victory. But when in the history books, I'm sure Dustin wants it as clean as possible. He believes he's the better fighter. He wants to do it clean. He wants no excuses. He wants it like, I'm the better fighter, to be kind of confirmed in history. So I think either way, if Dustin wins the title, doesn't win the title, he's going to want to fight Conor again before the option's gone. There's a lot of people wanting to fight Conor, but I think, the fact that everything that's happened around Conor and Dustin, that's a fight Conor would want, obviously, as well. And obviously it makes very little sense in terms of, like, if this was a league, which me and Sean talk about in the podcast, this isn't a league. Like, this is not fair. Like, this is not like you get a certain amount of points and your coefficient and mandatory contenders and stuff like that. It's just prize fighting, and how much the UFC can make and how much Dustin can make. And, you got to make hay while the sun shines. This career can, you can break your leg and not recover from it, and the career is over. Like, anything can happen. We've seen many things happen, and I think the UFC wants Dustin to win because they want these big fights and they want to make all this money. And there's been a lot of money spent on the UFC, and I think Oliveira is kind of, if he was to win, it would be kind of inconvenient for the UFC, because I don't think Conor versus Oliveira has the same selling power. I don't think Oliveira versus anybody has the same power as Dustin Parrier as champion versus number one contender, even if it isn't somebody very well known like a Conor.
Yeah, and I mean, we also have the spanner in the works where Sean Sheehan is trying to set up Conor McGregor versus Max Holloway 2 as well. So it'll be interesting to see if that goes down next year as well.
I want my 10%. I need that. What about that stat though there from Carl Jan? Alexander Gustafsson 2-5 in his last 7, and the 2 wins against Jan Blachowicz and Glover Teixeira. That's mad, isn't it? That's fucking crazy.
That's crazy. These things happen in MMA.
They do indeed.
I will move on again. Maybe we'll skip over the heavyweight fight and talk a little bit about Hamza Chimaev and the whole weight debacle this morning. I think he must have been talking to DC about a couple of tips about tipping the scales at the right level, but the fact that he came in 5 pounds under and dropped 5 pounds in 1 hour was a little bit of a joke, wasn't it, Sean Sheehan?
It was, yeah, but he was clearly holding the towel.
In fairness to him, I heard he accidentally put a kettlebell in his shorts the first time. So it's easily explained.
He's something fucking down there anyway. But yeah, look, but in fairness now, right? They made him come out and weigh again and put his hands up. So like, we can't have too many questions about it. But I actually didn't see it till afterwards.
Why can't we just have a digital scale that like shows like what people weigh? Like this fucking stupid thing that just kind of flops. Like come on,
it's so stupid. Do you remember the fight? Was it the Habib fight where your man was like, yeah, you made 155?
He just kind of pulled it across. He's like, whatever, don't worry about it. Khabib's like, you can see his face. He was like, oh, thank the fucking Lord.
That was the last time in Abu Dhabi as well, I think. So
it was
dicey as they want to say over there.
I said that's why they did it. But remember that, was it a Cage Warriors or a BAMA or something, that they had the digital scale and then someone like walked around and like kicked the wire of the digital scale and it went fucking flying.
Not like a shitty bathroom fucking scale, like a proper fucking scale. You know what I mean? This is a big organization. Like,
no win. Fuck a win. Harry, what do you think of that anyway? We've been waiting for ages. Go on.
Fuck weight cutting. That's what I think about it.
I agree.
I mean, yeah, look. I mean, what are you going to do? Like, the UFC don't even give a fuck about weigh-ins. You know what I mean? Like we said, how many times have we seen somebody weigh in and they're definitely not the weight they say, right? Like, you don't even get that at fucking grappling competitions. If you're like 2 pounds over, like 200 grams over in a grappling competition, that's it. You get disqualified. Like, it's done. But the biggest fighting organization in the world is like, DC, like what? You're like 5 kilos over? You'd be grand. Like, get in there. You know what I mean? Like, it's... who cares? Just fucking get rid of weight cutting and let them fight. You know what I mean?
is anybody like worried or a little bit? I picked Chimaev myself. Does anybody kind of second guessing their picks given that weight cut? Do you think that he may have been struggling in camp or something like that, or you just think it was just being away for so long and just missing this cut this time?
Well, there's definitely already questions around with the COVID, the long layoff, all that stuff. So it definitely adds another question. That it, like, if he was, if you were thinking of kind of throwing him in an accumulator or something like that, he may not be, it may worry you, but I do think that he will get the job done decisively here. I think as long as he's, we've seen some pro athletes come back and take a long time to kind of get back to them feeding themselves after COVID. So maybe you could kind of correlate that with the fact that he's, struggling to make weight here, but I do think he's kind of a big guy and he cuts a lot of weight already. So I think maybe the long layoff, getting a bit out of shape is probably why he's having a bit of trouble making weight. But, it definitely raises a few more questions and, makes it more intriguing.
Yeah,
he
for
has
sure.
fought
Like
over
that's
middleweight as well, though, isn't he? Like he's not. He's
has,
a
yeah.
big welterweight. So it's not like someone who's made welterweight their whole career, and he's just gone in there and they're been out for a while and they're struggling to make it. So I don't like. I'm very
base
interested to see what he looks like.
Yeah, me too. I think like the biggest story coming into this is his battle with COVID before the fight. Now, I base my prediction based off his last fight because we don't know what he's going to go in there. And if we see an anywhere of a smidgen of the Chimaev of old, I think he'll go in there and I think he'll out-grapple Lee in this fight pretty easily and get the submission. I don't think he's going to want to play around too much on the feet with someone like Lee because he has two hammers in both of his hands, and I think the safest option for Chimaev for damage limitations and everything else, I think his best option is to initiate the grappling and get him down. And I think that he will be the bigger guy in there. But I just can't help but look at the scar on his neck. It was obviously there from a ventilator. I heard that he was on a ventilator and coughing up blood and training. So it was pretty serious, and he dealt with long COVID too. So interested to see how he looks here. Does anybody else have anything to add on this fight before we'll wrap it up pretty soon?
As a COVID survivor myself, I hope he's okay and I wish him well.
He'll have to watch the gouging for Ling Jiglang. He loves an L gouge in the submission exchanges.
Sean Denny coming out with the old Denny tactics there. The old bit of a fish hooking, bit of a gouge, someone be getting hurt in here.
Sure, if the ref's going to let you away with it, fucking have at it.
You might as well. You'll be like Liverpool, just as long as the refs let you away with it, keep doing it, cheating,
Use
I
your
agree,
freebies.
Graham. I agree.
Just wondering what do you think, Harry Powell? How do you think Chimaev is going to look in here? Would you be worried about what he's gone through and the preparations and stuff for this fight? He talked about retirement and everything. So, I mean, what's your thoughts on this?
I mean, first of all, why just to beat a dead horse again? Why are we putting a man that's just suffered long COVID in a 170 fight? Why not just do 185? You know what I mean?
Because this is the UFC and Dana White.
I mean, I understand, but it makes no fucking sense at the same time, right? Like, he should have, in my opinion, just get Hamzat to do a fucking Paulo Costa, right? Come in and be like, I'm fighting at 205 and that's it.
The UFC are really dead set in this, but if you just had the title fights and the kind of number one contender fights actually at the weight, and you allowed them to go up maybe within a pound of the weight above, when it's not a contender fight, nobody's looking at, no fans are looking at it and going, well, he's only got 2 wins at welterweight. They're like, well, he's beaten this welterweight, he's beaten this welterweight. You know what I mean?
The problem with that program is if you did that with welterweight, you'd have lads cutting down to 184. Like, that's the problem with that,
Yeah, it's true. But if you ever want to get to the title shot, you need to, be in those contender fights. You need to show that you can make the weight. Maybe there should be like, once you hit a certain ranking. I know the rankings are terrible though. It definitely is hard to rectify. People are always going to try and skirt around it, as you said, but surely there's a better, we all hope there's a better option than guys nearly fucking dying and collapsing and people shaking on the scales and getting electric shocks off fighter because there's no water in them and stuff. It's fucking it's going to take a high profile bad long-term injury from weight cutting or death for it to be sorted out, and it's inevitable, really. Like, unfortunately,
if anyone wants to hear more about this, myself and Harry sat down for like 35-40 minutes the other day, and it's already up, isn't it? That one over on patreon.com
Yes,
/Severe podcast, and you'll be able to hear it there. So next week, journalism, we talk. Actually, it's 2 weeks time, because next week is going to be a busy fucking week, but journalism next one is very fun.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But just to round out that fight, like, I think we should be worried about Chimaev, right? Even if we take, I think, fighter A versus fighter B, we've kind of talked about that, right? Like, I think even in the stand-up, if Chimaev wanted to beat him standing, probably could. You know what I mean? Li Jingliang has got big hammers, yeah, but he's not the most technically proficient fighter, right? Whereas, again, on the ground, like, it's not even going to be close. So, can Chimaev get there before he gets cracked after a terrible weight cut? We've never seen him get cracked before. Like, yeah, there are questions now, right? There are questions. But I think for Khamzat, in a way, this could prove to be even better. If he goes in there and just absolutely demolishes Li Jingliang, well, then, we're kind of off to the races. Do you know what I mean? Here's the question. If Khamzat goes in there and absolutely blows out Li Jingliang, who do you give him?
Neil Magny.
Thank you, Ian. That's the right fight. That's who I would give him, but the UFC will probably fucking.
And who will they give him?
Yeah, who will they give him, and who I think they'll give him is probably two different things. But for me, I'm just interested to see, and if there's anything that will have suffered through the whole COVID incident that Chimaev has gone through, it'll be his gas tank, because his lungs have been affected. So we've not seen him come out of we've seen him fight Rhys McKee over 3 rounds, and he lasted pretty good there. So it'll be interesting to see if this goes into the later rounds, if he still has that same energy and he still has that same kind of drive and ferocity in the third round. So there's not too much more to talk about really on the main card. I guess before we wrap it up, I'd like to mention a fight that's happening early in the card. I think it's on the early prelims, and that's Makwan Amir Khani versus Leron Murphy, and that's a fight that I'm really looking forward to see. And I think Leron Murphy is a really, really, really good fighter, and massively, massively underrated on the UK scene. And he hasn't fought in a little while, and I'm excited to see him going in there against Amir Khani. And just wondering what your guys' thoughts are on that fight before we wrap it up.
I think it's a good fight. I'm a big fan of Ron Murphy. I think he's absolutely brilliant. I think he's the most under the radar UK fighter at the moment. There's a lot of hype about Paddy Pimblett and Jack Shore and Nathaniel Wood, and you could probably name 5 or 6 more, and he never gets any of the hype, and I don't know why. Because I think maybe he's not the best of all of them, but he's up there. He really is up there, and I think he's going to beat Amir Khani handily. And I like Amir Khani. I think he's a good fighter, but I think Leron Murphy I think he's next level. What do you think, Dads? Harry?
I think it's a coming out party for sure. I think he'll batter Amir Khani from pillar to post, to be honest. Like, Amir Khani's very dangerous in the first round, right? Big, high octane grappling, big slams, big throws, big takedowns, and then what? Nothing. You know what I mean? We saw again in his debut against Takugov that Leron Murphy knows how to stop a takedown. Obviously he got took down a few times against Zubair. Fine, good grappler. He got back up though, right? And if Takugov can't keep you down, Amir Khani's not going to keep you down. And when Amir Khani doesn't keep you down, it's going to be a long night for Makwan, I think. I wouldn't be surprised if we see like a replica of the Shane Burgos fight, right? Where Leron Murphy just punishes him, and then finishes him late when he wants, Also, on the topic of Paddy Pimblett, before we see, have you seen that motherfucker shaved his hair off? It's gone.
Like he was in the old Cage Warriors days when he first fought.
Not skinhead, no, unfortunately not. But that would be hilarious. He's like cut it short, and he looks like a tiny Matt Mitrione. You heard it here first.
Just to go back to Leron Murphy. What's your thoughts on that fight, Graham? What do you think of Murphy as a fighter overall?
Yeah, I think he's definitely the favorite here. I think Amir Khani's best bet is to come out as hard as he possibly can early, and try and get a chain of takedown together and get a submission. But I think it's unlikely, and I think the longer the fight goes on, the we've seen Amir Khani fade in the past, and I think this is a really tough matchup for him. I think as Harry said, it could be a coming out party here for Murphy.
Sean Denny?
We can't hear you again, Sean, I think.
There we go. I think Lee Roan's power is going to be a huge problem for Amir Khani. He's very active on the feet as well. So I'd be concerned about the gas tank of Amir.
We're after losing like 4 people there, are we?
Oh,
Anyway.
a mass dropout. Well,
a mass exodus.
Yeah,
we're going to
the mass exodus. Yeah, I guess, we were going to be ending it soon enough anyway. And just Evan mentioned another fight in the comment section there, and that's between Zaleski dos Santos versus Benoit Saint-Denis. That Benoit Saint-Denis, 8-0, Frenchman. He's been fighting in UAE Warriors and pulling off some good wins there, some good submissions. He's definitely one to look out. You want to talk about matchmaking in the UFC? He's going in there against a guy. We were super critical of maybe who Reese McKee would have been fighting, and he's entering into the UFC. We're talking about a guy here that almost has 30 fights, who's coming in against a guy who's undefeated after 8 fights. So I mean, the experience levels here in this fight, they're definitely uneven. But I still am big up on Benoit Saint-Denis. I think he's a good fighter overall. And that should be a good fight as well.
Oh, right. Will we leave it there, so?
Yeah, I think that's enough. And thanks for everyone for listening in today. Well, how are you going, Patrick? How's things? Thanks for everyone. Thanks for you lads coming on and talking about it. It was a good time. Before we go, I want to remind everybody as well that Kilkenny are always going to be the best, but also, if you're looking
that's debatable. When did you win in All Ireland last? I can't remember.
We just got sick of winning them. If you're looking for the best protein bars on the market, that you can head on over there to eatallreal.com, who have sponsored this podcast for us. Really good, really nutritious bars, protein bars. They have a bunch of offers on now for Halloween, a bunch of different selections on bars, and they're all delicious. I know that everyone in the Twitter group has been going crazy about them and how nice they've been. So if you head on over there to eatallreal.com, enter the code SevereMMA, get 15% off, and enjoy those bars. They're delicious. Go and do it. Support that company. And thank you all for joining us today. Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Harry. Thank you, Graham. And looking forward to this fight. I hope everybody else enjoys it as well. And we'll catch you again soon. We'll probably do another one of these ahead of the 268 card next week as well. So all the best, everybody. Take care. Enjoy the fights. Good luck.